Good evening, everyone. It is really lovely to see you all. And I'm so excited about what we are up to this evening. And I'm absolutely thrilled. Thank you, Holly, for inviting me to come and talk to you today. And I really just want to start by acknowledging every single one of you, because the fact that you showed up today is telling me that a lot about your thirst for knowledge, for learning and growth. So thank you for being here. And I can't wait to share all of this good stuff with you. On that note, there's only so much I am able to share with you because I have time constraints. But if you're interested in finding out more, I will tell you how to do that a little bit later on. So as the slide says, my name is Louise Lee and I am a life and leadership coach. By the way, that's both professional and personal leadership. A couple of fun facts on this slide, mine a little bit more obscure than Holly's. The first one is I performed a holiday concert in a prison. Some school friends and I were invited to play and sing Christmas carols one Christmas at one of Her Majesty's prisons in England, which is where I'm originally from. And the prison is called Wormwood Scrubs. Isn't that just a perfect name? The audience absolutely loved it. And it was actually a very humbling and heartwarming experience for me as like a 17-year-old. So I love that. Another school-related fact, I've just realized these are both about me as a child. I was also in the Royal Air Force Cadets at school. And what that meant, as well as many fun things, was that I actually got to fly small planes at real Royal Air Force bases. And the planes, believe them or not, were dinky little two-seaters called Bulldogs and Chipmunks. I kid you not. Now you know everything you need to know about the RAF. Okay. So this session today is interactive. So please, if you haven't already, open up the chat box because I'll be asking you to type things in there as we go along. Also, you're going to need something to write on. So grab your favorite notebook or journal and your favorite pen or pencil because you'll be doing some writing as well today. Saying no is such an important factor, not just to success at work, but to our fulfillment and happiness in life. And I know this because I constantly said yes instead of no early in my life, which, if I'm to be honest, worked really well when I was younger and wanted to please people. But it became less and less sustainable as I accelerated through my career. And in the end, I ended up being burnt out in a job that I dreaded. I was in a relationship I wasn't happy to be in. And I was living a life that felt like it was someone else's. If you can identify with any of that, just give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. And I felt like I was living a life that was someone else's because I was living a life that was someone else's, because that's what happens when you keep saying yes when you mean to say no. So I understand what this is about. But what about you? Imagine a world where waking up each morning inspires you and you're able to be and do your best every day. Imagine a world where you confidently and clearly say no. Give me a thumbs up if that is what you want. And I hope that's what you want, otherwise you're in the wrong talk. But anyway, that's okay. All right, I see some thumbs up. That's so awesome. Okay, so now in the chat, I want you to share something. And this is important because this is going to be an ongoing theme for the rest of the session today. Tell me in the chat, what is one thing you are dreaming of saying no to, but you just haven't? Okay, so drop in the chat one thing that you really want to say no to. You've been dreaming about it, but for one reason or another, you just haven't yet. Okay, and let's see what you got. I love it. No to some projects so that you can work on other projects. No to work requests that come in at the last minute. I love that. No to cleaning the house. I love that one too. That's so awesome. So what else? What else? No to doing taxes. Yeah, I hear that. It's totally the season. Making PowerPoints, extra projects, visiting family in Toronto over Christmas. Absolutely. Yeah. Wonderful. So keep these coming in, because what you're going to get from this workshop today are 3 key strategies and tools to take away to immediately use And you're going to get a lot of insight about yourself, which is very exciting. For you to get the most out of this session today, hold on to that dream no that you have in your life right now and think of it as we go through this session, and it can almost be your example to work through as we go through it today. But first, let's get clear on what saying no is and isn't. Okay. So I just want to be very clear here. Saying no is not a way, I hate to break it to you, but it is not a way of controlling others. Or what I really should say is trying to control others, because we can't really, whether we like to think about it or not. Saying no is not a way of trying to change others either, or a way of criticizing others, right? It's not a way to prove that you're right and they're wrong, okay? Also, saying no is not an excuse to not do something you know is actually important to you, okay? Now, what saying no is, though, and what I really want to reinforce for you tonight, is saying no is a way of managing yourself and your own life. It's a way of managing your time, your energy, and your resources. And it's a way of setting and maintaining boundaries, one of my favorite words. It's a way of honoring your integrity and what's important to you. So that's all great, but how do we say no? Okay, so here's how you say no. You ready? No. Who says you can't have a bit of a laugh about topics like this? Okay, but seriously, you say no by saying no. You can give a reason. You don't have to give a reason. You can say it lovingly. You can say it kindly. You can say no if you want to, at work, at home, to your boss, to your partner, to your parents. You can do it. But I know that you are here tonight, not because of what I've just said. You're maybe still worried or concerned or, quite frankly, terrified of saying no. So what I'm getting from this is that it's not that you don't know how to say no. The problem is all the meaning that you put on saying no. And when I say you, I really mean me, and I mean all of us together in this room tonight. When someone asks us to do something or not do something, we tend to have three general answers, right? The first one is yes. This might be your default right now, especially if, like me, like I used to, you tend to want to please others over yourself. Or maybe you're the kind of person who doesn't want to rock the boat. Definitely, that was me a lot. Actually, it reminds me of one of my clients. One of my clients, she kept saying yes to her parents whenever they asked her to visit them, even though she didn't actually want to every time. So she felt frustrated because she didn't want to spend every weekend with them, but then she also felt guilty about saying no to them. So it was that kind of heady mix of frustration and guilt. To make matters worse, this was actually straining her marriage. So through our coaching partnership, she realized that she needed to prove to her parents, she had this need to prove to her parents that she was just as good, if not better, than her siblings. And that was what was actually driving her behavior of constantly saying yes when she meant to say no. Once we actually sorted that out, she was able to clearly yet lovingly say no to her parents. And guess what? Her parents were absolutely okay with it. And my client is much happier, and actually so is her husband. So there's yes. Another option that we tend to say when people ask us to do something or not do something is no. And no, I just want to say, for what it's worth, there is a biological reason why sometimes we find it terrifying to say no and go against the grain, and it's to do with our evolution. Back in our hunter-gatherer days, in order to survive, we had to work with others. We wouldn't make it if we were on our own, which meant that we had to fit in. And that often meant going with consensus and pleasing others in order to survive. So I'm saying that because I don't want you to think that saying no is terrifying and there's something wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. Sometimes things are hardwired in us, but when we're aware of that, then we can make some changes, which I'm going to share with you tonight. Now, the other option that we can often say, apart from yes and no, is maybe. And maybe for some of you, saying maybe is actually also a very quick response. It's a default response. Saying maybe is easy. right? There's no commitment, and it's great if you're confused or uncertain about the actual decision, because you don't actually have to make a decision when you say maybe. And you're not the only one. A number of people that I work with feel the same way. And through our work together, we get to the root cause of what's underneath that hesitation or seeming inability to make a choice, which can be really quite paralyzing. So that they no longer have that sense of stress or panic when you actually have to make a decision. Because if we're truthful about maybe as an answer, maybe is basically just an excuse. If you keep saying maybe, let's be honest, it just gives you more work in the long run because you technically still have to make a decision. So if you say maybe a lot, again, there's no judgment. I invite you from now on in to start replacing maybe with either a yes or a no. And remember, you can always change your mind. So just to let you know, I have personally been through a marriage, separation, divorce, and I am now happily married again. I am here to tell you, based on that alone, that you can change your mind, and it is not the end of the world. It is okay. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the saying yes bit, the thing that we tend to do when we don't want to. And part of why we tend to say yes is because there's this myth around saying yes. And I'm here to bust that myth tonight. That myth around saying yes is that saying yes is less scary than it is to say no. If you feel that way right now, give me a thumbs up, right? If you think in many situations where you've said yes instead of no, it's actually because it's felt less scary to say yes, give me a thumbs up. But it's a myth, because saying yes to things you don't want to say yes to is actually poisonous. It is toxic. And you know that deep down, which is why it feels so gross. There's that sense of dissonance between what you are saying and how you actually feel. Saying yes to things you don't want to say yes to destroys your dreams, right? It erodes your well-being and your very desire to live your life powerfully, joyfully, and fulfilling. So let's take a little look at what is stopping you from saying no. And the questions I want you to answer are, for this Dream No, what does saying no mean? What does it mean? And then I want you to ask yourself, what's terrifying about that? And then I want you to go another level deeper and ask yourself again, now what's terrifying about what I just said? What's terrifying about that? The deeper you go, the more insight you'll get into what's really going on for you. So I encourage you to go deeper. Okay, welcome back, version 2.0. I hope you all got something out of that. In fact, give me a thumbs up if you learned something about yourself that you actually didn't know a few minutes ago. It could be just what was actually underneath that thing you thought was terrifying. It could be actually realizing that what you thought was terrifying actually isn't that terrifying. But whatever it is, if you found out something, give me a thumbs up and keep whatever it is that you found out. Keep that thought, because I'll be asking you to share that in the chat a little later. Before we do that, we're going to take it to the next level. We're actually going to do a writing exercise now. And in your notebook, this is something that you're going to do here in the main room, but on your own, written. I want you to write down your answer to the following question. And we're still talking about your dream no right now, okay? So the question I want you to answer right now is, what is your deepest, darkest secret about what saying no to this particular thing means about you? Okay, so what are you most afraid of when it comes to saying no to this particular thing in your life? Okay, I'm just going to put on some background music, but go for it. We'll keep an eye on the clock for about 2 minutes or so. So just journal what it is that's most scary for you to say no, that you don't even want to tell other people. One of the things that I found is that one of the best way to banish fears is to actually expose them. And before I ask you to share what your big insight was, if you wish, and this is only if you wish, I want to share with you one of mine. because it's a two-way street, right? I remember that for a long time, when I was in the workplace, there were a lot of additional projects coming my way. And there was one particular person who was a C-suite executive, and he just kept giving me additional projects. And at first I thought it was wonderful. But then it just kind of got too much. And I felt as though that if I said no, I would be seen as ungrateful. I would be seen as somebody who didn't appreciate getting additional work. I would be seen as somebody who didn't want to advance in the company, advance in my career. And this person had a lot of contacts in the city as well. And I would just be seen as just not being a team player. And what really terrified me about that was that I would be seen as not good enough. And it really hit something deep for me, which was my biggest gremlin, and this might be yours too, which is I'm not good enough. When I told someone about this and I said it all out loud, it was actually with my coach at the time, what I found was I was able to move past it. And so I encourage you to share in the chat if you are willing to right now. And I'm not going to say any names or anything on the video, just to be clear, but share in the chat what your big insight was from both the exercise with your partner about what saying no means, and also what came up for you when you journaled about your deepest, darkest secret. One of the things that, as you're doing that, I just want to say that one of the things that my clients and I always notice is that this exercise of dismantling your fear is almost always quite anticlimactic and almost kind of embarrassing in a way, if you let it be, because what I realized was that, if your boss gets disappointed and then gets over their disappointment of you saying no, your fear of getting fired or whatever is basically unfounded, right? It's basically not true. Or if your boss does decide to fire you, and that was your biggest fear, that you're going to get fired and, kicked out of the building, because you are making healthy choices about something that's ultimately none of their business and not really a big deal, then they're probably not the kind of person you want to work with anyway. So that's why a lot of it is, just dismantling it, and sharing it actually really banishes those fears and puts them into light. So I love what I'm seeing in the chat about being really afraid of coming across like a fraud, like an imposter, being afraid of being ungrateful, being perceived as not being able to take on a challenge, just absolutely all of those things that you are sharing in the chat right now. I want you to know that I feel it too. And chances are other people on this call right now and watching this video are also feeling it. So you are not alone. So really what this is all about is our mindset. It all boils down to our thoughts, our beliefs, and our words. It's about what you are making the words yes and no mean in your mind, and quite frankly, in your imagination. This is all in our imagination, my friends, okay? But by starting to dig deeper into the meaning you're creating about saying yes and no, you are increasing your own level of awareness, and awareness equals choice. What you have just discovered about yourself is important. When you pay attention to what's going on around your thoughts, your beliefs, and your words, you can then choose whether they are something you want to hang on to, if it's still working for you, or whether it's something you want to change, if it's something that actually is now getting in your way. It allows you to see what's in front of you from a completely different level of awareness. And awareness gives you that choice. In fact, I would say the greatest freedom you have is choice. So when you start to feel that familiar tension between saying yes but wanting to say no, I want you to pause for a moment and notice what is actually going on underneath for you. A little bit about like what we did just now, okay? So it could be pausing and thinking, oh no, there I go again. I want to say yes right now because I'm scared of getting fired, but really, am I gonna get fired? What would that mean? All that kind of stuff. Because by pausing before you speak, you respond as opposed to react. You respond as opposed to react. And that is what this is all about. It's shifting the way we deal with situations by responding instead of just reacting. In fact, on that note, I often get asked a lot about how to manage emotions, especially emotions that come up when we're having difficult conversations. And one client I know used to get so worked up, her boss actually put in her performance review that she was too emotional and she had to sort it out. And so she came to me, we got to work on it. And since then, she's actually gone on to get a promotion and lead her team and her boss way more effectively. So let's spend a few minutes just to talk about composure. Okay, because being able to manage your emotions is absolutely key to being assertive and influential. I'm going to share with you this evening a distinction between emotions and feelings. Okay. For the purposes of this conversation, I want you to think of emotions as being instinctive. So an event happens. So it could be an external situation, or it could be actually our own minds and brains anticipating something. But something triggers and generates an emotional response, right? So that emotional response could be fear, it could be sadness, it could be relief, it could be love, it could be anger, okay? Emotional responses, they often happen without much of our conscious will. And most of the emotions that we feel are actually automatic, and they're often physical. Okay, so those are emotions. Now, feelings, on the other hand, I want you to think of like this. Feelings are how we choose to interpret our emotions. Feelings are how we choose to interpret our emotions. If you've ever calmed yourself down, maybe you've done that before in the past, that was an example of this, because you were choosing a different feeling to feel than the emotion that actually came up for you. Okay. We often think that we're at the mercy of our emotions, but that actually is simply not true. It's not true. You can choose to feel differently in any situation, even if those emotions come up instinctively. So let's talk about an example. Let's say you're in a meeting and people start arguing with a very, very negative tone, okay? You feel immediate emotions. Maybe they are emotions of fear, of anger, of sadness. Okay, you feel your blood pressure rising. Maybe you feel your heart beating faster. Maybe your palms are starting to get sweaty. I think you know what I mean. Okay. So you know that if you continue letting those emotions run their course, you're going to be on the slippery slide to feelings such as dread and anxiety. Okay. So instead of allowing those emotions to go further to, say, dread and anxiety, you can pause. You can notice what's going on and just let it be. What I do is I take a moment, notice what's going on, let it be, and then I take a few deep breaths, and then I choose. I choose how I want to feel, which allows me to respond instead of react. So in this situation, which was a real situation for me, I wanted to feel, instead of dread and anxiety, I wanted to feel alert, but I also wanted to feel calm. So I kept breathing deeply. I made sure that I spoke in an even tone. I sat comfortably in my chair. I actually put both feet on the ground at that point, so I felt grounded. And I thought positively about the people in the room. And I chose to be that calm force amidst the storm. So what I'm saying here is that all of these choices that I made, they generated a new feeling, which was completely different to what came up earlier on. And if you do this over time, if you choose to create feelings you want from your emotions, your brain will habituate to the new feelings, which means those new feelings that you want to feel will naturally start coming up for you more and more often. They will become your instinctive emotions. Emotions come and go, but how you feel lasts, and you can control it. Isn't it powerful to know that you can master your feelings? If you're like, yes, this is awesome, just give me a thumbs up or give me a yes, give me a letter Y in the chat. So let's talk a little bit about how you actually explore your choice, because one of the keys to successfully saying no is actually being really clear that no is actually the right answer for you. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit now about some useful tools for you to start using. Okay. So you'll see 3 on the screen, and I'm just going to go through the 3 of them relatively quickly. So first of all, let's just be clear about this. Sometimes it actually may not be smart or safe for you to change how you behave around a reasonable fear. You need to have enough safety to warrant the risk. So you need to assess the risk. In this case, I would ask yourself, does this fear that I feel actually serve me? You know, that fear you identified earlier in your journal. Does this fear actually serve me? Is this actually true? Do I know it's true? And if it's not true, or if it doesn't serve me, am I prepared to set this fear down? So talk yourself through those questions can be very useful, because what you are doing is you are exposing your fear, you are questioning your fear, you're asking if it's even true. And sometimes when you realize that it's just your imagination, it's not actually true, it may not even happen, then it completely changes the way you see things. Now, on the flip side of that, there are times when having some fear can actually serve you, okay? This is not a war against fear. I just don't want you to think that I'm like, no fear, you know, like that 90s sunglasses brand. Anyway, this is about raising your level of awareness of what is driving that fear and seeing if it's actually helping you or not. Because remember, awareness gives you that choice, okay? So here are a few things that can help you, a few tools that can help you in terms of assessing risk. Okay. Assuming that saying no is actually a viable option for you in your dream no situation, here are some tools that you can use. So the first one is the 10-10-10 test. This one is around asking yourself, will this still matter in 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years? I love this one because it really allows me to zoom out and get perspective on it. It's like, this isn't even going to matter in really 10 hours, let alone 10 years. Okay. The next one is around best case scenario and worst case scenario. So this is where you will ask yourself, if the best case scenario actually happened, what would that mean for my life, right? And then on the flip side of that, ask yourself, if the worst case scenario actually happened, would I be able to figure it out? You know, would I survive? And then another tool I invite you to use is what I call the 4 questions. And here are the 4 questions. I love, if I have a yes, no, black or white choice to make, if I'm really stuck, I love asking myself this. And I also work through with my clients this set of 4 questions as well. And they find it incredibly useful, which is, what will happen if you say yes? What will happen if you say no? What won't happen if you say yes? And what won't happen if you say no? Okay. So with all that in mind, you know, ask yourself, can I manage this risk of saying no? Is this risk actually acceptable? What do I want to do? Do I want to say yes or no? And if no is not the right answer for you as you are going through this right now, as you're thinking of your dream no situation, and no is actually not the right answer for you, continue to say yes and don't judge yourself for it. It's okay. You can say no to other things, and it might help to practice saying no to smaller, less risky stuff. That's fine. Another thing to bear in mind is that saying no might actually mean loss. Some of you may have already identified this. It might actually mean pain, sorrow, grief, real emotions. Don't be afraid of those emotions. Remember, you don't have to be at the mercy of your emotions. You have the power of choice to create that new path for yourself instead of reacting to what's going on. Okay, trust yourself. You know the right thing to do. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about opportunity cost. When you say yes to lots of things, you're also saying no to lots of things. And opportunity cost and sunk cost fallacy, both of them, are very commonly used in business terms. So what I'm kind of training you and teaching you here will be really relevant in the workplace as well. And it will really help level up your level of business understanding. So opportunity cost is basically about the value of what you lose when you're choosing between A or B. In this case, it's yes or no, right? It's the return on the option not chosen minus the return on the actual option chosen. And when I say return, it's not always about money, right? In the business sense, we tend to think about money, but for you, it may be about your time. It may be about your energy, your satisfaction, your sense of enjoyment and pleasure. It could even be about your integrity. One of my clients wanted to take her business to the next level. And when one of our sessions, I asked her what she wanted for her business in 5 years. After a moment, she actually said out loud what she wanted, and then she went really quiet. She went really quiet after she proclaimed her dream, because in that moment of declaring what she wanted, she realized that she was effectively saying no to a whole bunch of other business ideas she had come up with over the years. So although she was happy at declaring her dream and going forth in that direction, she was content with that. She was still grieving at basically saying no for now to all the other directions. So when it comes to opportunity costs, I want you to ask yourself questions such as, if I put my time into this, what am I giving up time doing instead? On the flip side of that, you can ask yourself, what am I willing to give up in order to make this, the thing I want, a reality? Okay. What thoughts or limiting beliefs or assumptions or interpretations am I willing to let go of in order to actually have my time back, or have my enjoyment back, or my sanity back? Okay. And ask yourself another one. Will saying yes gain you more than what you sacrifice? And another way of asking yourself that question is the return on saying yes going to be more than the return on saying no? Okay. Because your resources are precious, so use them wisely. And then the third one I want to cover here is sunk cost fallacy. One reason you might stop yourself from saying no when you want to say yes is because of actually how much time, effort, and money you have already put into something. If you have ever let unworn clothing clutter your closet just because it was expensive, or if you've stayed in a relationship you didn't want to because of all the time you already put into it, you are familiar with the sunk cost fallacy. That is the sunk cost fallacy. So economists all around the world have said time and time again that sunk costs are not relevant to future rational decision making. We know this, but how many times have you fallen for this? Right? Why do we do it? I still do it. Don't look in my closet right now, okay? And ask me whether I've worn everything. Why do we do it? Maybe you don't want to feel loss. Maybe you don't want to appear wasteful. Maybe you don't want to appear ungrateful, which I know has come up a few times tonight. Whatever it is, again, when you become aware of what is driving your fear of saying no, you can look at it objectively and really start to question it. Because saying no is not about feeling bad. After all, when it comes to sunk costs, there's nothing you can do to get back the money, the time, or the energy that's lost. And quite frankly, if you keep saying yes to something just because of the amount of time you already spent, you're not doing yourself or anybody else any favors. Okay, so be quite honest with yourself about this. Saying no is about honoring your integrity and setting and enforcing your boundaries. It's about creating that possibility of you saying yes to something that's actually more important to you than this. So speaking of boundaries, if you want some better defined or stronger boundaries, you are not alone either. If you do want some better defined boundaries, give me a thumbs up or give me a yes, I want better boundaries in the chat. Okay. I see it all the time. And I also see it in myself too. This is a constant thing that we do in life. Okay. So to know whether you want to say yes or no to something, you also need to know and take stock of what your needs are. For example, this could be that you want to get into a new habit, okay? Your new habit that you want to get into is to be able to shut down your work laptop at 6 p.m. Monday to Friday and not touch it again until 9 a.m. the next workday, okay? That could be your need. That could be a new habit you want to put in. So part of what will help you say no a lot easier is getting really clear on what you want and what you need first. Then when you're clear on that need, on that habit you want, then you can get clear on what boundaries you need to put in place. So for this example, it could be communicating to your team, your out of office hours, when you are available, when you're not available, and maybe delegating some tasks that are actually, if you're honest, better suited to someone else in your team or even in a different department, or even just not do them at all. Another trick is to take a moment to figure out ahead of time where any difficult no's are going to show up in your life. Okay. You know what I mean? There could be some people who you intrinsically find it harder to say no to, or certain situations. So it could be, for example, if you're wanting to give up, I don't know, smoking, or it could be drinking. It could be that there are specific friends in your life where you anticipate saying no to them will be harder because of that. Okay. When you anticipate that and when you prepare for it, it allows you to come in prepared instead of getting caught off guard, right? When this need to say no shows up. So again, get really clear on which situations might be a bit sticky or icky for you, and just prepare for that going in on what you want to do. It's kind of that intention implementation, I call it, right? You're implementing your intention of saying no. And remember, in situations like this as well, maybe is unclear, and it's often actually unhelpful to the person you're saying it to as well, not just to you, because people need to know what you're trying to say. As Brene Brown says on this slide, clear is kind. Unclear is actually unkind. So a lot of the tools that I give my clients around this is using direct language that gets straight to the point. So powerful no phrases, they often begin with words like this: I need, I won't, I can't, I don't like. Okay, I don't like it when, I'm not going to, or I'd appreciate it if. Okay, so you can use any of those as the beginnings of your sentences to, again, support you in saying no, particularly in those icky situations. Another helpful trick that I want to share with you tonight is to actually learn the language of no, because it doesn't actually just have to mean no. It could be no. It could be no, not now, but, right? And you may want to provide a date and time. No, not now, but. It could be a specific situation that actually needs to be met first. It could be no, but, and actually provide an alternative suggestion. All of those are viable no's, and there are many more that you will come up with depending on the situation you're facing. And the key to this is to practice. Because as you practice this more and more, you learn to actually make the no about you, not about them. So this is what I mean. So instead of saying, no, I don't want to talk to you tonight, Carol, because you talk way too long and I lose an hour and a half of my precious evening time, you can say, Carol, I'm afraid I can't talk to you tonight because I have a really important deadline I want to meet, and then I want to take some time to myself before I get ready for work tomorrow. Okay, so that's what I mean about making all about you as opposed to about them. Okay. And then another hint around this is about keeping the emotion out of it. So what I mean by this is what we talked about earlier in terms of composure, emotions versus feelings, but also it's a reminder, don't try to second guess what the other person is thinking, okay? Or worry that they'll get upset, because you are responsible for your end of the conversation. And if they get upset, that is their work, not yours. Okay, remember, it is none of your business, my friend, what other people think of you. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time, and I'm going to stare into the video. It is none of your business what other people think of you. Okay, it's their business. It's not your business. It's actually not about you. And if you get really stuck, you can give yourself other safety nets, such as let me think about it, or I can't decide right now, I'll get back to you at date. Or it could be, let me check my schedule and get back to you. All of those are good stuff that you can say too, okay? Remember, you train people how to treat you. The only way you can change how people treat you is actually by speaking up, okay? So on that note, one of the key aspects of all of this today is what you think of yourself, okay? It's how you perceive yourself and your ability to say no. Start identifying yourself as someone who says no easily. Okay? See yourself as someone who takes a stand, as someone who values your own needs. See yourself as someone who's actually more scared of living an inauthentic life than getting yelled at. Because if you have to choose between letting yourself down or letting someone else down, please choose letting someone else down. Please, please. don't choose letting yourself down over letting someone else down, okay? Someone else can, let them down. But for you, please don't let yourself down, okay? Okay. Good boundaries, remember, they're all about self-love. Be the kind of person who loves yourself, and it sounds really cheesy, but it's true. And you will find that saying no will actually start to make you feel powerful, not guilty. So you know how earlier I said to you, we need to get really clear on what your needs are? Well, it helps to know what you actually want and desire. So we're going to take a few minutes now to do just that. Okay. Think back to your dream no, the one where you dream about saying no. And I want you to share in the chat right now what it is you want in that specific area of your life. Right? In that specific area of your life where your dream no is, what do you actually want? And when I say, what do you want? I want you to, in the chat, I want you to include the feelings you want. Okay. Because often I hear people say, I want better work-life balance, or I want a new job. Okay. What's important is not actually the object or the person itself, but what the object or person will allow you to experience. Okay, so for example, you may say, I want to say no in that so that I want to have a better marriage. But what you really want, instead of a better marriage, what I'm guessing is what you really want is to experience and share peace and love and joy with another soul. Okay, so drop in the chat, what do you actually want in your area of your dream no? Oh, I love this. I love this. To feel cared about, that my needs are respected. I want to help people. I want to see them grow. I don't want to manage them. I want to feel safe. I want to feel respected. I want to be seen when I say no. I want to be recognized as a good technical person. I want more control of my time. I don't want to feel pressure from my family. I want to say no without having to explain, and I want to enforce my boundaries. I want to be taken seriously. This is all amazing stuff. Can you see now what saying no can allow you to do? If you were to have a look in the chat right now, I'm tingling. I can feel tingles up and down my spine right now, because when you say no, it's not making you a worse human being. When you say no, what you've written in the chat is telling me amazing stuff happens. You get to step up, you get to grow, you get to fulfill why you are here. Not only that, you get to make other people's lives even better. So can you now start to see that when you are saying no, when you are saying yes, when you really want to say no, you are not doing yourself or other people any favors. Honestly, this is so incredible. This is so incredible. Okay. So today you've gotten lots of tools and tricks and strategies and techniques. You've gotten deeper insight into what fears you have around saying no and what you want instead, and now your next step to get there. So one thing I would say at this point is to remember to water the flowers, not the weeds. Water the flowers, not the weeds. I love that saying. And what I mean by that is water your dreams and your desires. Okay. What you identified earlier as your dream of what you actually want, that is your guiding light. It's like your North Star. Okay. That will remind you what's important to you and what's not, which will in turn help you figure out whether your answer is a hell yes or a hell no. Okay. I'll share with you a quick story as you're adding into the chat. So this came up for me where a few years ago, a situation happened at work on a project that in my mind shouldn't have been handled the way it did, right? The results were unfair, the process was undue, and the implications potentially devastating for the people involved, including myself. And I realized that I could speak up about it or I could let it go. Okay, like some of you may be thinking about a particular situation. You could let it go or you could speak up. If I spoke up, it would have been what my friends and I jokingly called a CLM, a career limiting move. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they were like, no, don't do that. That's definitely a CLM, Louise, right? I mean, I was looking at the possibility of getting fired or let go, and I'd never been fired before. I mean, really, who wants to be fired, for crying out loud, okay? I even spoke to a colleague about it who was quite senior in the company, and he warned me at the time when I told him what my intention was of speaking up, and he said, it's a bold move, Louise. Be careful. The thing was, what I got in that moment was that I could either hang on to my job and career as it was, as I built it, as I know it, or I could hang on to my integrity and my sense of self-worth. But in that situation, I did not get both, right? They were incompatible. So I needed to pick. And if you're facing this in your life right now, maybe this story will help inspire you, because I decided that if I didn't speak up, I wouldn't be the person I wanted to be. And that to me was it just shook me to my core. And that's why you feel gross. Again, it's what I said earlier. It's that dissonance between what you know is right and what you're actually saying. When we feel that dissonance, it just feels gross to our very core, right? So the cost of my silence and my integrity was just too high. That's what I realized. So I picked my integrity and I spoke up. And to be honest, I'll be perfectly honest with you, in that moment when I spoke up, I was so nervous. I was so scared. But there was a part of me, and if you've ever done that, you recognize this. There was a part of me which was like the equivalent of sitting ramrod straight in my chair. And I spoke up and I spoke clearly and I looked the person in the eye, right? But I didn't really know what was going to happen. I didn't know whether I was going to get fired. But what I did know was that by speaking up, I would walk away respecting myself. And when I really sat down to think about it, I knew that whatever happened, that, worst case scenario, I would be able to figure it out. And it's the same for you. Whatever happens in your life, you will figure it out. And I know this because you're here today. You're here because given everything that's happened in your life, you have figured it out. Enough so that you have the capacity, the energy, the self-love, the intelligence, and the resources to be here today. And I don't just mean here at this event, I mean here in general, in life. Okay, that is no mean feat. Your sense of self, your integrity, your value, your worth, it is priceless. And it is your responsibility to honor it and to nurture it. And the funny thing is, when we do that, when we nurture our integrity and our self lovingly, crazy magic stuff happens. Good things start coming into your life and good things start coming into other people's lives. Remember what you said your dream was, why you wanted to say no in that dream no? It's because chances are not only does your life get better, but other people's life gets better as well. And that's because you and we are role models, whether we like it or not, whether we realize it or not. You never know who's watching you or listening to you. It could be your friends, it could be your coworkers, it could be your children. One inspiring step you take today in saying no could have an entire ripple effect that you are not even aware of. So make sure you remember these three very important things, which are: there is enough, you have enough, and you are enough. Okay. It's time to circle back to where we started and to imagine again. Imagine a world where you wake up each morning feeling inspired and you're able to be and do your best every day. Imagine a world where you confidently and clearly say no. Okay, I want you to drop now in the chat and I want you to type, "That is who I am." You're not imagining anymore. This is now who you are. So type in the chat, "This is who I am." Yes, this is me, because this is who you are now. This is your new identity. I bet you didn't think you'd be walking away tonight with a new identity, huh? So you are someone who says no when they want to say no. You love to say no. You can say no. You do say no. I am saying no. I excel at saying no. I'm grateful I say no. Okay. Honor yourself, honor your dreams. What's important to you. Do not forsake them for other people's investments and dreams. Okay. And there's one more question I'm going to leave with you as part of this workshop today that I want you to ask yourself when you're in that moments where you feel stuck. Okay. And that question is this: if I already had all the love in the world, how would I do this differently? Yay! Thank you so much for your time today. If you'd like to stay in touch, please sign up for my newsletters, or as somebody put it, my newsletters at louiselee.com. That's my website. Those newsletters is where I share personal stories and valuable insights quite frankly, things I just don't share anywhere else, nowhere else.